Hi everyone, my name's Jackie and welcome to my channel Enjoying Life's Journey, and welcome to our weekly book club discussion. Each month we pick a book based on an area of our lives that we can improve on, and this month's book is The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And basically this is, if you can guess, it's for improving our relationships. So if you are someone who has struggled with relationships, or maybe you're in a marriage right now where you feel like that honeymoon phase is over, or if, say, one spouse feels like everything's okay and the other one doesn't feel like everything's okay, then this is a great book to read for sure. For this week though, last week I mentioned for the reading schedule that we're going to start off with just reading chapters 1 through 3. So we're going to talk just a little bit about those chapters, and then I have one discussion question for you guys per chapter. I might give my input a little bit on some of the questions, but the goal here is to get the discussion going with you guys and for you guys to actually read the book. And in addition, we don't want to just read the book, we want to actually start applying some of the principles that we read in all the books that we're reading into our lives, and to truly be building a new habit or adding something into our routine, something that's going to help us basically to, like I said, improve that area of our lives. Last week I mentioned our reading schedule, so if you're not sure what the reading schedule is for the book and you want to join along with us, go ahead and check that video out. As well, I left you guys with 2 questions last week, and so I want to go over those really quick with you guys. The first one was, what were the 5 love languages, if you knew? The first one is quality time. The second one is words of affirmation. The third one is gifts. The fourth, acts of service. And the fifth is physical touch. Now, I'm not sure if that's the right order that's written in the book, but those are the 5 love languages. Basically, if you're not sure what we're talking about, basically each person has their own, what we call a primary love language. So you have your primary love language, and that's the way that you interpret love and affection from those around you. And we've come to find out that you might be in a relationship with someone who speaks a completely different love language than you do. And that's why we might have this thing of we're falling out of love, or we're out of the honeymoon phase, and things like that. So that's what Gary Chapman starts to talk about at the beginning. So the first 3 chapters of the book are basically talking about that theory that everyone has a different love language. As well, he mentions in there, within each love language, there's still different dialects. So it's very important to have a grasp on an understanding of the different love languages and the different dialects, so that we can show our true love for the people that we're with. So that was the first question, was what were the 5. The second one I left you with was if we thought it was possible to have more than one love language. And I'm gonna say yes, it's possible, because myself, I actually have 2 primary love languages versus just one. So there is an assessment in the book. You can kind of get a head start, and you can see what your primary love language is. Again, there's a test for the female, there's a test for the male. So if you and your significant other want to take it, then you can kind of get an assessment there. If they're not feeling it, they don't want to join you on reading the book, that's fine. Read the book, get what you can out of it. It's going to give you a lot of clues in here how to, in a way, read the other person to see what their love language is. You can start showing your love for them in their love language. Okay, so the first chapter in the book is what happens to love after the wedding. Okay, so he goes over, there's a story in here about a man who's been in 3 different marriages. They all lasted different times, but ultimately, you know, he was like, what happens? Seems like you get married and everything falls apart. Well, that was kind of like that honeymoon stage that I was talking about. You've probably heard a lot of people refer to. Everything's new, it's fresh, you're trying harder to get that person to like you. And think about this, like when you're first dating someone, those 5 love languages that I mentioned, you're probably showing, like, now this isn't written in the book, this is my own opinion, you're probably showing different aspects of all 5 of those love languages. So in turn, you know, that you feel like you're falling in love with that other person because you're seeing somewhere in there you have been given your type of love language. Okay, so my first, so the question for chapter 1 I'm gonna have for you guys is, what are primary and secondary languages? Okay, so how do these function in your marriage and your other relationships? And like I mentioned, you have your primary love language. You might have more than one primary love language, and then you're gonna have secondary love languages, because you're still, out of the 5, there's still gonna be a little bit of each of those areas that will resonate with you. However, your primary one is what's going to really keep you going. And the second chapter talks about keeping the love tank full. So they also, within the first 3 chapters, he also mentions that this kind of can stem back to our childhood, how we were raised, how we were shown affection. But ultimately, it's just, you're gonna have your primary love language. It's just gonna be your language, whether you were raised that way or not. And this is what, for an example, you have 2 siblings, they were raised in the same exact family, and they were shown the same affection by their parents equally, the way the parents perceive their love language to be. One can grow up and say, my parents don't love me, nobody, you know, they don't love me, they're not paying attention to me, this or that. And the other one could grow up saying, yeah, I'm full, I feel like I've been loved. And that's keeping that love tank full, and understanding that everyone has a different love language. And so there's another story in there that talks about a couple, and Gary tried to give them advice, and he tried giving them both the same advice towards one love language, which I believe was words of affirmation. And they went on and they're doing this, and later he comes back and he asks the couple how everything's going, and the husband's like, great, everything's great, and the wife's like, yeah, it's okay, I mean, nothing's really, yeah, he compliments me, I guess he means it, but I don't know. And so he realized then that, oh, her love language wasn't affirmations, it was quality time. Same thing, you have that wife who says, oh, my husband's always working, he doesn't spend time with me, and they're like, I'm with you all day, I'm sitting here all day. Or same thing, you have a spouse that feels that you're not being affectionate to them because you're not cuddling or this or that. So you're trying to keep that tank full. So it's not, you're not just gonna fill it once and forget it. You gotta continually fill your tank. You have to, you know, it could be like everything's really good, and then you kind of stop the habit of doing what it is that shows your love, and then they start depleting, and then they're like empty. Their love tank is empty. And it's hard to get passionate when your love tank's empty, right? So here's your question for chapter 2. How often do you focus on your spouse's love tank, and how successful have you been on keeping it filled? So this is one I'll go ahead and kind of answer myself. I would say I've been very unsuccessful in this, and realistically, it's about coming back to me. Oh, well, I'm not getting this and I'm not getting that. In reality, I wasn't even thinking about my spouse's love tank. And you can only imagine, like, if you fill their tank, then they're just naturally gonna start filling yours, right? So yeah, chapter 2. So chapter 3, it talks about that in love stage, or like I said, the honeymoon stage. And it talks about how long that I'm in love, like that almost like that fantasy phase, how long it can last, and why, like I mentioned, you come out of it and it's like, man, what happened to the honeymoon phase? What happened to everything? And it's not that nothing happened with the love, it's that nobody's continually filling the love tank, and we haven't focused on learning the primary love language for your spouse. And so what happens is you think, oh, well, when we were dating, everything was good, because like I mentioned, you might have been using all 5 of those love languages. So at some point, you did show your spouse love in their language, and you just may not have realized it. So my question for you guys for 3, how long can we expect to sustain an in-love experience? This one, you have to read it if you want to know. He gives the answer in the book. And then when reality sets in, what are some of the ways the illusion of intimacy evaporates? Okay, so that's your questions for 3. So again, you guys can pick up the book at your local library. You can find an audio version of it. You can shop through Amazon. I have a link to purchase the book in the description on Amazon, which is my affiliate link, so helps me out a little bit, you guys. But again, if you're in a relationship and you're not feeling satisfied, or you feel your love tank is empty, or you feel the honeymoon phase is over, or say you're not in a relationship, this is a great book. It's a must read. So far we're learning kind of the history behind the theory of how everything is working. Next week we're going to read chapters 4 through 9, and they're going to go over the 5 love languages in detail. They might give you a little bit of stories about examples of couples, and so that's really good. And it's going to give you ideas on how to show that language to your spouse. So once you know what love language your spouse is, you can start doing some things to help. Because some of it may not come naturally because it's not your primary love language. So for instance, if your primary love language is, say, gifts, you feel loved when people give you gifts, then if somebody else's love language, say, are words of affirmation, it might be hard to you to always come up with a sincere compliment and words of encouragement, things like that your spouse might need. And then chapter 9 is going to be discovering your own love language. Like I said, you can go and take the little assessment that's in the book. However, this one's going to go into a little more depth about that. Yeah, but as far as like the whole, the beginning of it, like I said, it resonated with me because it kind of opened my eyes to say, yeah, you know what? That's happened in almost all of my relationships. The love tank doesn't stay filled. And then I look back and I'm like, wow, okay, that person's love language was this and that. And, even like with my spouse now, I'm like, oh, okay, we have these ups and downs. So we have like this in love stage, and then our first daughter was born, and we kind of, we had the raising of our kid, and then we got back into the in love stage, and then we're up and down, and so we had hit one of those plateaus recently where he was showing his love for me in his love language, but I wasn't receiving it. I wasn't really receptive to it because I wasn't feeling that I was getting, I guess, it wasn't being shown in the way that I felt I should be shown. But after reading more about his love language and the different dialects of his love language, it's very interesting. So far I'm liking the book. Like I said, the beginning of the book, it's giving you the ideas, the principles behind this, and go ahead and read it. Let me know in the comments. Go ahead and answer those 3 questions that I left for you, and also let me know if it resonates with you, if you understand what he's saying, if it makes sense of what he's saying. And I apologize if this video is a little all over the place because I have read a little bit further into the book, and I hope I didn't give any advice that's later on, but if I did, hey, go get the book and then you'll know what I'm talking about. The other thing, like I mentioned, is we should be focusing on our spouses or our significant others' love tank. And how we can help keep their love tank full. And they do talk about it later. We'll be reading this, not this week, but next week, about how love is a choice. We choose who we love. We choose to love them. And it's gonna be work. And when you get into it, it's eye-opening for sure. And if you actually read it and you start applying it, I guarantee you're going to see a huge change in your relationship with your significant other. So I hope you guys are joining me for this month's book club, and I'll see you next Friday, and we'll talk about chapters 4 through 9. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye. You